Welcome to Fart Theory, the show about farts and theories. My name's Katie Macon. I'm your host, and today's guests are two very sweet, very special men. Before I tell you who they are and what their deal is, backstage when I'm matchmaking people, if I'm the one doing the connecting, which I wasn't for the first episode. At the first episode, you've got people who are used to date. So they were pre-connected. They came as a package deal. But otherwise, I'm over here doing a little bit of mad scientist pairing. And I was wondering, what about these two led them to be connected as guests? And after thinking about it, I realized they're both really emotionally and spiritually centered. And there's something about their presence that just makes me feel glad to be alive. So I don't know if you can really kickstart anything with a, I don't know, more gracious or generous dose of praise or complimentariness. So today's guest, you've got Phil Pallen. Phil is a small business AI expert. He's an author. He's a motivational / I guess I would say keynote speaker with Phil. I can't correct me there. You can be both. You motivate me to be a better person. So you are a motivational speaker to at least one person, because being around you makes me feel better about being alive. What else? He is a branding expert to the stars and to regular people like you and me. And he may or may not be horrified by my recording choices, and that is my prerogative. And he's very gracious and just kind of let me do my thing. So that's a little bit more on Phil. He's also Canadian, which matters too. He's a Canadian living in Florida, bopping around the world with his honey. Ken is a magical man whom I met at a cafe. Isn't it always a magical man who we met at a cafe? Ken was wrapping up his doctorate in Catholic something or other. He could tell you, or he could not. So Brother Ken is now Dr. Ken. So technically he's Brother Dr. Ken or Dr. Brother Ken. It seems like the jury is out on what direction he wants to go there. But I think we all need at least one good Catholic flatulent story in our lives. And I'm sure Ken brings many values and delights to the world. But in this context, I think that's a niche that he's filling for us here today. So if you want to hear about tooting priests, Cropdusting nuns, and everything in between, this is the episode for you. Thank you for listening. And also quick shout out to How Technology Works. If you would be so gracious as to leave a review, I would really appreciate it. It helps to know if I happen to be making a positive emotional impact on you, because that is the point of doing something like this. Like, yeah, it started as a depression project, and it is, and it was. But now that I'm less depressed, I would like to really set my sights on you, anybody listening at home. So if I'm making a negative impact, let me know. Neutral one, let me know. Positive one, hit that review button. Like, subscribe, pass it along, and make it a good day. See ya. Hello, Phil.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, we're just sitting around in a dark room being weird. Phil, meet Ken. Ken is guest one is the artist formerly known as Brother Ken, who is now a doctor.
Love it. Hey, Ken.
Meet Phil.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited and nervous to see where we get, because I'm intimidated by both of you for all the right reasons. Phil, for your branding expertise, and Ken, because you're morally superior and intellectually superior. And so I think it's part of what's so beautiful. So the premise of the show is it's about exploring our shared humanity and noticing, where farts like this just ridiculous connective thing that we all do, and where are our differences fun, and what can our differences teach us about the world and how we relate to life itself. So Ken,
yeah,
may I put you on the spot to tell us about farting nuns?
Ooh, yeah, we can do that.
If that's okay. That's like a very abrupt transition, but I just
do you want to do farting nuns or priests? Which would be your preference?
Oh my god, gosh, oh my goodness. Phil, dealer's choice. What do you want?
I am happy for you guys to choose, because I think both are the right choices.
I agree. Ken, let your heart lead the way, please.
Maybe the, what was it, priest, since they're about to choose a new pope. That feels timely.
Mm-hmm. That is true. The holy wind that blows through the Holy Spirit. Yes. So I go to daily mass, and it was a small chapel that I was at, and there was an older priest who was saying mass that day, and all of a sudden you could just hear this, very, very faint, like squeaky noise. And I look over, and the guy who is the altar server is trying not to die laughing. And the other folks are kind of staring around the room, trying to figure out what's going on, and just clearly befuddled as to what's happening here. And every time the priest bows at the altar, which is several times throughout the Mass, you hear that same little high squeaky noise. And then the poor altar server desperately trying not to fall over laughing. And I realize, because I'm sitting a little closer, that, Father's a little bit older and either A, doesn't care that he's farting, or B, just doesn't know that he's farting while saying the sacred Mass. So other people are like checking the windows. They're trying to figure out if their pew is squeaky. They just cannot figure out what's going on. And yeah, I think most people left not knowing what was happening, but it was clear that poor Father was just gassy that morning.
Could you smell it?
Nope.
It was just an audible one.
There was just this slight high-pitched squeaky noise that was happening.
Oh, but doesn't that make us human? It's humanizing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. I think I would want to attend Mass just to see what would happen. Maybe not smell.
Maybe not smell.
There's enough incense and other things going on in church that you wouldn't smell it anyways.
Oh my God. So what was crossing your mind? When did you realize you're like, that's a fart?
It was probably during the Eucharistic part of the Mass, the latter half, because the priest bows.
I don't know why I'm laughing at that part, but that was very funny to me.
Why? Say more, Phil. Yeah, you just...
I don't know.
The Lord be with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, sometimes holiness just comes out of us, and sometimes it's a slight unholiness.
Okay, so what would the Old Testament say about farts, in your, I guess, professional opinion? Bold question, I know.
Yeah, the bold question indeed. My assumption would be fairly similar to what we have today, where it's like, well, you just got to be polite about it. But the Old Testament is also full of, let's say, crass humor, we'll say.
Is it?
And, all sorts of like body jokes and things.
Wait,
like
really?
That. What's that?
I know. I'm surprised. I wasn't like teeing you up because I knew that. I feel like the Old Testament's full of ratchet stories, but I don't think I realized there were body humor jokes in there.
Yeah. Like,
okay.
There is, I forget where precisely it's at. But essentially the English translation would be, it's a son who's trying to be just as cruel and terrible as his father. And this is where like the kingdom of Israel falls out of favor with God. And he says, my father's waist isn't even as big as mine. But the word waste does not mean waste in that instance.
Oh.
Yes. So there's like that kind of body humor going on. Yeah. I think I need to read the Bible. Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Read it with a literary companion, because the Hebrew and the Greek don't always translate the best into English.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, Bible. I see you.
Yeah. There's also the great story where, so you can't, let's say this, you probably shouldn't mock somebody for it. So I think it's the prophet Elisha, who is walking along a road, and a bunch of kids start making fun of him for being bald, and he sets a pack of she-bears to devour the children.
So this is sort of the Old Testament that I was aware of. Is like there are some really, I don't know, bold twists and turns of fate. So farting wise, do you think if there were to be a fart in the Bible, do you think it would have been more of a punitive tale, or one about being kind to your neighbors, or about the Holy Spirit, or about the wind? Like, what do you think? Because I don't think it was an accident that the priest was farting. Do you know what I mean? Like, you told it like it was sort of, he didn't know. But I mean, Phil, aren't you also wondering what the real gospel was that day? Because I don't think it was, an accident per se. I think he was teaching it in with his whole body.
Well, clearly his whole body. You might be giving him too much credit, though. I think it could have been accidental. It could have been the meal he had the night before.
It wasn't like the body and blood of Christ just at the other side.
Yeah, I would. So on the whole, I would bet that if it shows up in Scripture, there are times where there like certainly would be jokes about it. I mean, even in the New Testament, there are all sorts of different little quips and jokes again that we don't necessarily get because of the language translation. But it'd be don't do it during something sacred. But if it's Jesus hanging out on the beach with his bros, then I'm betting they laughed at it.
Okay. I like the idea of Jesus tooting with his bros and wondering what they are doing there.
Yeah, it's not the bad fish, It's...
Okay. Switching gears aggressively, Phil.
You're good at that.
I am. Yes. I just non sequiturs. We're just like, all right, here's an abrupt transition for no reason other than we can. Phil, farting across borders. Is it different being you in different countries when like there are different cuisines, there are different cultures, you travel a lot? Do you feel like your relationship with your toots is the same wherever you are, or is it a little bit different, like in Japan?
That's an interesting question. I'm trying to kind of understand the connection to food. I mean, certainly food is different, right, in every single place. Mm-hmm. Or maybe like just disruption of routine is something I've been thinking a lot about recently. Like I'm home, and so I've already back into the rhythm, trying to get to the gym. If I don't have a lot of time to work out, I'll go and do F45 at like 6:30 a.m., get the day started and get the workout done by 7:15, like eat my normal things, have my working hours. But then as soon as I go elsewhere, it's like disruption. It's in a way it's exciting. I find that exciting. I love a change of pace. I love a new language, a new country, a new cuisine.
I thought you meant your farts were disruption and you found that exciting. I was like, go on. You're like, as soon as I go somewhere, it's disruption.
Prompt. Yeah, I took the fart as a prompt and then took it more like culturally. Cuisine,
I like it.
Lifestyle, those types of things.
Sure.
So, yeah, but I'm an optimist. You already learned that in the first few minutes of this recording. So I welcome the changes, I think. I like routine, and then I like changes. I like disruption.
Do you have any memorable farts in your marriage? That you're comfortable sharing?
Nothing comes to mind. We're actually I have friends that are like public farters. They fart, or not friends, but I would say like couples. And they're like very open about it, and then they giggle. We're not really like that. It's like farting and burping. Those are not really encouraged things. It's fine if it happens, but I don't know. Maybe it's like being a gay man. It's kind of like those are kind of like gross things, and you try to be on better behavior. I don't know.
I was wondering about that. If it's different. Yeah.
I think it is different. I think if it happens, it's not a big deal, but I'm not a good person to ask because I don't know. It's not something that it's it happens and then it's celebrated. No, it's kind of gross. So if you do it in your private, great. But it's not something that's done together and celebrated. Yeah.
Nice one, dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
but
give me 5.
Pros that do that, but that's not the way in our world.
Well, this is so interesting because the first episode was with my good friend Gina and her ex, Lady X, and in their experience of queer farting, being gay women, that's where they were the most comfortable. And when they were farting around men, when they were either pretending they were straight or figuring things out, or one of them's bi and she's married to a man, it's different. And it was just so interesting to notice sexual expression and farting and how we show up, because there are all of these cultural norms that we get. And hard yes. Do you feel like you got more from Canadianness or gayness? If you had to pick, because I'm making up stories that as a Canadian too, you're like,
I think more from gayness.
Yeah.
But also from my upbringing. So Canadianness makes me think about just like my upbringing and my mom. Like there were things that like, again, it's not a big deal if you fart. It's not a big deal if you burp, but like they're generally frowned upon if it's something you do around other people. That was my upbringing. I also was never allowed to say, shut up. Like if my mom hears me that even as an adult, she would be very upset with me. That was the S word growing up.
This is so interesting, Phil.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's so interesting because I perceive you as somebody who is so comfortable in his skin that it's infectious. I love being around you because I know that I can be a version of myself I like more than the one I'm being without you in the room.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
I like myself more.
Creating that space.
I like myself more when I'm in your presence. And so it's so interesting to me that you're not judging a fart, but it's not the same like, woo, freedom, comfort that maybe perhaps I could extend to you if we happen to toot in the same room. Maybe I could give you some of my joy if we link up again for you to get your miles, which I think you're probably doing fine on. Which is an iconic How We Met story, by the way, too. You are my level of unhinged. It was. Do you care to tell Ken how this one went down?
Yeah,
it's great.
I was actually just in San Francisco, but we met because we had been, I think, in touch on social media.
We were just tweeting. We were just tweeting, just vibing.
I knew you were in San Francisco, and I said, "Hey, I'm coming to San Francisco just for the day, up from LA because I need to hit my miles goal."
Yeah.
So I booked a business class flight from LA to San Francisco, which is like a 25-minute flight or whatever, and just went to San Francisco for the day, there and back. And we had lunch and we met in person and have stayed in touch ever since.
We got to vibe. Yeah.
That's how we met. But it's you're always so perceptive and also so creative about how you go about these conversations, which is why I think the premise of this podcast is genius, because it is a universally human thing. But you're right. I kind of do like upbringing impacts behavior and even boundaries. Like, I'm actually not the person that you want to like celebrate farts with. That would like make me probably uncomfortable.
Interesting.
But like not uncomfortable to the point where I would react in a way that would make you uncomfortable for the reasons that you've already highlighted. Me as a human, I try to create a safe space for everyone that I'm with. Unless I don't like you, and then I won't. And then I'll take a lot of joy in not creating that space. That is not. I'm kidding. But
I love that. Like, and it's so honest. This is it. One of the things I've appreciated about you for a long time is I feel like people know where they stand with you, or at least that's the impression I get. Is it's part of what's so fun, and Ken I'll find a way to kind of weave this all together so that you are also part of this node of the conversation. But it's so interesting because I know where I stand with you, and it happens to be in a cute, fun place. But even with things that are perceptible vices, I still remember you saying, your problem is that you're too smart for your own good. And I wouldn't necessarily agree. I would say I overthink. I later learned I'm autistic. So it's like the spiky intelligence where it's just this field of either stupidity or just sort of like obliviousness with like a very steep spike of intellect and overthinking and analysis that just like falls off the cliff. But you saw that spike and you're like, yeah, I think you're struggling as a person because you're hanging out on this little like mountaintop. But it wasn't judgmental. You're like, here, let's just discuss this thing that you're having that we can both see. And I'm like, I thank you for just naming the thing that's like right there. It's like, no shame. Just there it is. Move on. Like, all right, that's fair.
That's interesting.
It was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
But that's been really core to my success. Like people often remember the bio as your baby ugly. Like people remember these kind of details about me, but at no point does that ever venture into like judgmental territory? I'm not right. Like when I'm doing my work or when I'm helping someone brand or I'm being perceptive in a way that's useful for someone, it's never from a place of like surface judgment. I'm always just, I think, curious by nature. And enthusiastic to help in a genuine way. I have like a, I go about it in my own like personality driven way, but it's always from a place of genuine care, I think, for people, truly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Sorry, that was aggressively loud. Yes, agree. It's so interesting how we collectively have these paradoxes, right? Because a theory I have, and then I'll find a way to bring this to Ken, is that our relationship with our farts is an extension of our relationship with ourselves. So it's really interesting to me, Phil, that you have this very well-known public self who is very curious and very not just supportive and genuine, and is like, ooh, I see an opportunity there. Let's look at that. Let's tweak that. Let's what have you. You're very fun to troll for these reasons too, because it's just like, oh, this will be a good time. I don't think I've trolled you much lately, but I remember, I think, making like a fake website page for one of your site editing things. I'm like, oh, this will be good. And what was I going to say? But it's interesting because with your farts, you're like, no, I'm going to be conventional here, just in this one place of my life, because I'm very like sunshiny here. I'm going to be a bit more mindful, a bit more demure over here with my toots.
Well, I know folks who, like with their kids, the kids are allowed to burp. The kids are not allowed to fart. That burps are okay, like your tummy was a little rumbly, but fart, you go to the bathroom and you handle that somewhere else.
How old are the children when they get this message?
Like potty training age, like as soon as there's any kind of sense of control over it.
What's that? That's a knowing laugh, my dear. Take us into your world. Who are you laughing at or with right now?
My nephew decided to show that he can do the worm. He's 8.
Oh, yes, this one. Phil, get ready. This is fun. Or it's fun for me.
We are standing in my parents' kitchen, which it's not a big one, but it's not exceptionally small. And so my nephew is very large for his age. He's a big kid. Has already hit his 6th grade growth spurt, and he's in the 3rd grade. So he decides he wants to show me how he can do the worm. And I say, oh, that's awesome. Let's see it. And his foot clips the trash can as he's doing the worm, and so sends trash all over the kitchen. And my sister is standing there with him, and she starts laughing so hard that she farts, and then starts laughing so hard about farting that she pees herself, and so then starts laughing so hard that she just really, really lets one rip after that. And my nephew is just like laying on the floor, and my mom walks into the kitchen and is like, why is my grandson laying on a floor full of trash? And my daughter is bent over, like barely able to breathe, laughing so hard. And my son is just standing here with an aghast look on his face, also laughing at this whole scene. And it was one of those like, Mom, you should be used to this. Like one of my older sisters accidentally broke my nose in the kitchen, and so I'm bleeding all over. And my mom walked in and went, I just mopped. Clean that up. Take care of that. And so my mom is a very pragmatic person. And so it's like, why is there trash here? Why is there blood in my kitchen? Like, how
dare you break your nose in my kitchen? Attend to yourself. Now go clean it up and then walk yourself to the doctor. Report back when you're fixed.
Yes. Yeah. And that was break number 6. So it was kind of a loss. It was a foregone conclusion anyways.
Sure. Yeah. Just what's one more at this point? Wait, so that first of all, hearing it the second time, that sounds like a scene out of Modern Family, where it's something where, like, I feel like if that was a real sitcom, we would have been watching these threads of destruction mounting for a while, and then at the climax of the episode, you'd see it all. Just you'd set it up to watch it come apart magnificently as it just did. So I feel like we just entered the climax of a story that's been building for a while.
Yes.
I do. What was it about the farting nun that was so funny? Were you crop dusting a nun, or was she crop dusting you? Because crop dusted a nun. Ken, did you repent? So I want to hear the story. I want to hear if you apologized to God, and if so, how many Hail Marys or Our Fathers, or like, how do you make right with the Lord if you crop dusted a sister? And what? Like, I just have so many questions about all of this.
Yeah. So it was a very long hallway, that I was walking down, and I don't remember what I had eaten the day before, but it just was not hanging out with me. And so, I crop dusted the entirety of the hallway. And then as I get to the door that I'm going into, one of the very old, like 82, 83-year-old nuns walks out of the next door. And she walked, I mean, imagine the time that it takes you to walk from like your office to the like the break room.
Sure.
Double to triple that for her. Like that is her pace and speed of walking. And so I walk into my room having just crop dusted a very long hallway as she walks to go down that hallway, and me thinking, oh, sister's going to be in my toots for about the next 5 minutes here. Yeah, it was not going to be a quick escape. And it's the only hallway. Like you have to go down that hallway to get to the other end of the building.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It was one of those, I don't know if I should be mortified and feel horrible about myself or just laugh because there's nothing else I can do.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Oh my gosh. It always is a long haul, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's like
that's where it happens.
Like, sister, you actually need to stay in your room for 10 minutes. You'll thank me later, but don't leave your room.
Wow. Yeah. That would really be taking one for the team, huh? We're like, okay, listen, so I have to give you a heads up. You're taking me back in time when I don't know what was going on. I was in my young 20s, but it was bad. And I was farting alone in my apartment just all day. It was just a really flatulent Saturday. And I lit so many candles just to see if I could mask it. And I remember this was so bad. But a dear friend of mine came over and she's like, smells great. And I was like, and she like took this big inhale. I'm like, please don't do what you just did. I've been farting all day. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to cover it. And and this is my friend who went to Harvard Law, and she was the stereotype buster because she just was so down to earth. She still is. She's so open-minded. And she single-handedly forced me to reconsider the assumptions I made up in my mind. Because she was like, oh, all right, well, just keep tooting away. Like, love it. Keep up the good work. I was like, what kind of friend are you? I want more of you in my life. And we're still good friends. Not because of that story, but with an attitude like that, she was like, all right, well, here we are.
That's a good attitude.
It's a very good attitude.
So,
yeah.
I'm going to duck back to something Phil said or was talking about before. There's a question often in relationships of how long until you are willing to poop at your partner's house.
Ooh.
Which is one thing, but how long until you're willing to pass gas in front of your partner? Because I feel like pooping is like, oh, this has to happen no matter what. But farting has some element of like, ooh, I should really try to hold this for the duration of how long I'm here. So do you think there's a distinction between the two? Because there is in my mind.
I think there is. I think there is a distinction, at least in my household. Farting in front of each other is not generally accepted or celebrated. If it happens, it's not a big deal, but it's not great. It's not a great look. Whereas like poop talk is more frequent. Not in excruciating detail, but like
you'll never believe just what came out of me.
I would say, did you poop today? And we would like have a little giggle about that. Or like, did you poop just now? Or like, something like that. And we laugh and like totally kosher. Or like if you go into the bathroom after the other person is there and it's like, oof, what happened? We say that. What happened to you? Like, yeah. Like it's kind of like a playful thing, and that's totally safe.
Makes sense, yeah.
Phil, why do you think that is? Why do you think it's different?
I'm not really sure. I suppose it's just the boundaries you create in a relationship. That could be friends, that could be lover. But I'm not really sure the difference of those boundaries or what the origin is.
Ken seems to have a theory of his own. So Ken, what's going on over there? I can feel that your mind is alive.
Yeah.
Take us there.
Again, I think it's kind of the piece that I mentioned of the like, like a poop is just there. Like it's going to happen. And so, it's embarrassing. Like I remember as a kid, like I was at a friend's house who lived down the block and it's like, oh, I have to poop. Therefore I'm going to run home. I will not do this in front of somebody else. Whereas like farts were like, you're not supposed to do that. Even though like farting is part of the exact same process of your body.
So
I think that's an interesting theory.
I'm going to weave in. I like where you're going with this. I'm going to weave in something from an Australian anthropologist. Her name is Kirsten Bell, not to be confused with Kirsten Bell. Phil, you would love her site and branding, by the way, if you want treasure trove, big fan. But she wrote a book called Silent but Deadly. And one of her pieces is on the invisible boundary that a fart creates. So a fart, especially when it smells, it violates an invisible boundary that you don't know how to avoid. So with a poop, you can look at it and go, that right there is a turd. I know where it ends and I begin, and I know exactly what to do with myself to stay safe and to not die or have something disgusting or gross happen. With a fart, there really isn't a safe space because it doesn't end. It's just like, like you were saying, Ken, you crop dusted the whole hallway. It wasn't like there was this one turd and the sister could see it and go, oh, that's for sure gross. It's like, when you crop dust the hall, there are particles of poop all throughout the hall, and there's nowhere for her to go. She's trapped. And so I think that brings up a lot of primal fears in people of being out of control, of being, it's dramatic, but in danger, right? Because it is, our bodies know that that's toxic and it's bad for us. We're like, ooh, uh-oh. But what I thought was so interesting is that I liked and found it really intriguing that you said something like, when you're willing to fart, as if you had a choice, because it seems to me that there are definitely some couples who kind of have a trial by fart initiation. My body knew what it wanted to say before my brain did. But I've heard so many stories of couples winding up in these unfortunate situations where they're like, oops, I guess we just broke Trump. But to you, it seems like you've got, or your perception is that it's so dialed in. There's a choice here to say, okay, I'm so masterful playing this game of like hearts, but with my farts, that I can decide when to break Trump or when to play the Queen of Spades and when to like unleash this thing of mine in your presence.
I once crop dusted an entire classroom while I was teaching, and then the boys just all blamed each other. It was great.
No Wait,
one
really?
ever thought that the teacher was doing it, but the students were like, "Oh my God, did you do that? No, man, you did that. Oh, you're the worst." It's like, I'm just not going to say a thing.
Wait, so hang on. So Ken, you're supposed to be our what's our moral center here? There's a phrase I'm reaching for. Maybe Phil, you have it. What's like? Aren't you supposed to be the voice of reason in the three of us? And here you are taking the most delight in the most damage done. What, sir? What? You go to mass every day, and here you are just having far too much fun with your farts and the just scenes they're causing. Do you think, are you a heterosexual man? Do you think that we can give you the, like, you're a white straight man? Do you think that that's what's going on? Or like, why are you having the most fun? I'm not mad. I'm just curious.
Cis-het white dude, that's fine. I think there's also an element of never trying to take myself too seriously, and that part of it is like with weightlifting. So I'm a competitive weight and power lifter. Like, you're at the bottom of a squat, it's just going to happen. It's, and the first time, it's one thing when you're squatting, for example, and you just pass gas on your own, and everyone's like. It's another when someone's spotting you because your spotter stands behind you and then like hooks their arms under your chest so that you can't tip the wrong way. And when you fart on your spotter, it is a whole new level of just feeling absolutely mortified with yourself.
Sure.
But at the same time, everyone's just like, yeah, man, it happens. Like we're power lifters. We eat too much protein, too much fiber, and we put a ton of weight on our backs. Like, it is going to happen. And so that just ends up the rest of my life of things that are like, yeah, there are stressors in our life and it's just going to happen. And I can either laugh at it or I can feel mortified. And feeling mortified is frankly kind of boring.
It's so intimate. Do you feel like you're emotionally closer with the people you farted on than the others? I'm serious.
I doubt that, but certainly a sense of like, there's a sense of solidarity and camaraderie that you get in a weight room.
Sure.
And so I think that it's just built into that.
Okay. It was a genuine question because I've heard I used to work in fitness sales for a hot minute. I'm familiar with, a lot of different athletic subcultures, and the dairy products and the protein powder and the things that can do to someone. Not for someone, but certainly do to someone. And I remember having a very gross one during a personal training session where sometimes you're just in a position where you lose control or just the way that the sphincter is positioned. It's really not much you can do anymore. And I remember I had a very, very bad one that didn't make a sound, but it did smell. And the trainer was assuming it was one of the men. He's like, oh my God. He's like, who the fuck did that? This is, pardon my French. He's like, this is awful. I was like, Tommy, I'm so sorry. It was me. Like it was me. I've really been struggling with all these different things. And I still remember the look on his face, like, Katie, no. And I'm like, I'm so, but I felt I had to be honest because I could have gotten away with it, but like, I can't, I don't know. I felt this moral compulsion to be like, it was me. And I don't know if that stayed with him or not, but I do remember how genuinely terrified he looked. It's like, surely that did not emerge from a woman. I'm like, it did. It definitely did. I'm not well on the inside right now. I'm really going through a lot. And it's showing up outside me.
Yeah, having multiple older sisters, I am very comfortable believing those smells came from a woman.
I bet. What do you feel like you two are either learning from each other or curious about? Just while I have you two in the room with each other.
It's an interesting kind of common thread. Before we met today, I remember thinking like, I don't know what I'm supposed to plan to have a conversation about farts, but maybe have some initial thoughts on what the like human connection is. And I spent a lot of time talking about and researching AI. And in any of those conversations, you talk about like the importance of the human in the equation. So I think that's what I like about this conversation between the three of us is that is a common connector, a human connector is just the source of so many interesting like learning moments about each other, about life. Like it's just an interesting connector. I suppose that's why you started this podcast in the first place.
Well, yeah, the podcast is a spin-off of a book idea I had, which originally I was going to call Own Your Fart Strategically, a field guide to self-actualized flatulence. And it was answering the question, when you accidentally fart in public, when do you tell the truth and when do you lie? And when I started writing it, I realized there was no way I could answer that question because truth-telling is so subjective. But then I got really curious about the question, I farted, now what? Which is about how you respond to what I was calling the socially traumatic fart. So the new title pending would be Master Your Wind, The Timeless Art of the Alchemized Fart, or I farted, now what to do when your body betrays you, or something like that, right? And later learned I have OCD, so all of the good ideas just get stuck in this perfectionistic gridlock in my brain that gets so close to shipping and then spirals out of control. And I'm like, fuck, pardon my French. But a spin-off thought was there are so many really nuanced things. I was like, fart theories could be one of the little things in this fart trilogy that I'm sketching out. Because there's another book called Paint with All the Colors of Your Wind, which is farting as an active, creative, and spiritual expression. And it's a pretentious coffee table book, and that's a different thing. But with this show, I thought, man, there's so many unanswerable things. And the idea with the book, oh my gosh, Phil, you would love this actually, is the first half of the book is about you understanding your rapport with yourself. So like, how am I relating to my own fart? And then the second half is reframing the fart as an invitation to intimacy. So instead of viewing it as a barrier to connection and seeing, hey, I've farted, I feel ashamed, I feel humiliated, I feel mortified, I feel alone, you flip it and say, well, what can I do with this? Or do I want to do something with this? Because farting is human, right? So when do we feel connected with people? We feel connected when we're present. We feel connected when there's a little bit of vulnerability. We feel connected when there's maybe, some shared humanity or like there's, empathy or compassion or an emotion. And a fart actually does kind of like tee you up to get people's attention. It sets you up to expose something a little bit tender about yourself. And I'm like, there's something here. And what I think you'd get a kick out of is I first had this idea when I was more in the personal branding space, in the same kind of head and heart space as you, when I was fiddling around with Sally Hogshead and playing around with her work more. And I was originally thinking about helping people understand their personal brand of flatulence. And I was having a lot of fun with that, thinking like, okay, are you avant-garde? Are you more coquettish? Do you, if you're somebody who people think would fart, for you, maybe an interesting strategy is to tone it back and be really delicate. if you're somebody who doesn't look like they'd fart, maybe for you a strategy is to punch it up more and like really own it. And so I was riffing with all that. And then I realized that the human experience is so nuanced and perfect and complex that you can't, I mean, I guess I could, but I was like, I don't know. I don't know if a brand strategy for your fart is really it. And so now we're here. Then the projects got shelved and life happened, or I happened to life. And then I got a book deal and they optioned the second one. And I should have written this. And so now I'm podcasting with you and Ken.
Love it.
And other people. I know. Anyway, that was the long story.
I will say I have lied to somebody else's benefit that, chaperoning school dances and stuff like that. One of the young women farted in front of her date. And I told, because I taught at an all boys school, and I told the guy like, oh no, it was mine. Like, teacher life, man, you just get stressed out. So I covered her tracks because I knew she would be mortified if she found out that it were her.
That is what in episode 2, John would call the purple heart of farts. Somebody gave me a purple heart of farts. I farted and somebody claimed it as mine. And I eventually did tell the truth, but one of the guests was like, man, that was the purple heart of farts right there. He took it just for you. And I'm like, yeah, man. So Ken, you also get an honorary purple heart of farts for that one. You're welcome. Yeah, it's my honor to bestow this honor to you or upon you.
Bestank this honor upon you.
Bestank this honor upon you. Okay, before we kind of wind up or bring it to a close, what are you walking away with for both of you?
Well, I'll say the first thought on my head was, coming into this, I really had no idea what we would talk about, but maybe it's a continuation of my idea earlier, but I love how you've positioned this as the entry point for interesting discussion around humans, psychology, business, all the topics that we've touched. I've never had a podcast conversation that's touched on so many different things. So that's been the fart as the normalizer.
Yeah. Oh, is fun.
Is really unique.
It is something. That's since we're talking about lineage, and I'll just briefly touch on my heritage. I didn't stand a chance at being normal. So my dad, before I even existed as an idea, Ken, to answer your question, my dad said to my mom, hey, honey, you know how you know when you really love someone? She goes, what, sweetheart? He goes, when you can fart in front of them and not feel embarrassed. And then, love you, sweetheart. So like, I wasn't an idea yet. So I didn't stand a shot at being normal. So Phil, when we look at how we were raised, I'm like, my mom's high school friend still is traumatized by my mom farting with the door open when they were in college. So I've been hearing about farts from both sides of the lineage for a very long time. And I think I entered into this world assuming things were normal that other people have a bit more decorum about. I'm like, yeah, that's not how it goes with everyone else. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to use it as a silly way to just get to know people. Mm-hmm. And I'm really glad you brought AI into it, because I am on a journey with how I feel about AI. And it was cool because I realized AI can't fart, and I have that going for me. And so do you.
Yeah, it can't.
It can't fart. Ken, what are you leaving with?
My takeaways. That's a good question. I don't have any immediately, but I'm a slow learner, so I might have to ponder for a while.
But maybe it's okay not to have any takeaways. I think it's okay to just enjoy the discussion.
Phil, you have my heart for saying that, because before this I was thinking, okay, I have two dudes on here and I'm thinking, okay, direction, give them a goal. And I'm like, I don't really have one other than let's sit around and talk about farts, because it is a very open-ended, I don't want to say fairly pointless thing, but maybe it's like Seinfeld in the sense that there really isn't a plot here other than the format is I'm going to bring together guests from different backgrounds to play around with the edges of this theory that we're more alike than we are different as people, and our differences are a big part of what makes life fun and worth living. Mm-hmm. So thank you for letting me speak with both of you and get to know your experience of reality via your farts, and for being, I don't know, just open and funny and courageous and tender with all of it. What am I taking today? life is fun. It's fun to meet people. It's fun to meet people and it's fun to connect them and see, just, I don't know, play around and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I'll cut it and send it to the audio person there, unless you have a thing and I can cut this thing out. Ken, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you.
Oh yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm trying to think if there's anything funny or fun I've learned that I can pass on to you from one of the other guests. They're just so different. Phil, I'm going to be really curious to see what else shows up with sexuality around farts, because it's not what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but I think I was seeing you as a man before I was seeing you as a gay man. And so I was thinking, I was like, oh, as a man, you have more freedom to do what you want. And I'm realizing that might not be true with at least your experience of the subculture, or not subculture, but the gay. Why I've been using the phrase subculture for everything lately. I don't think about why I'm doing that, but yeah, just culture. Interesting.
Very
interesting. Ken, thank you. Phil, by the way, I met Ken once at a cafe and was like, it's destined. And Ken was my spiritual guide that day. Everything he would say was important to my life. So I'm like, let's stay in touch. Do you ever have that happen? When you're like, why are you just telling me everything I need to hear, even though I don't know you?
I can't tell myself those things. So it's helpful every once in a while if I can say them to other people.
Oh, it's great. I don't even remember what it was, but you were a paragon of clarity and it was wonderful. It was I felt like I was in this kind of centering rod. I'm like, he's my spirit guide today.
Glad to be part of it.
Thank you both for making time. I huge hugs from afar. Thank you so much for listening to Fart Theory. If you liked the show, I would deeply appreciate it if you could leave a review. It helps get traction going. It helps build trust. And at bare minimum, it helps me get some feedback on how we're tracking, what people like, what they don't like. And it helps me understand my emotional impact on you. And that's the most important thing going on here. This is not, it's a creative outlet, but at the end of the day, if I'm not making some kind of positive emotional impact on you, what's the point? So if you could leave a review, positive, negative, neutral, and anything in between, I would really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day. See ya. Bye.